Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Tyler Adelfo. I hope that you're all having a wonderful day and that you are staying safe. As you can tell by the title, in today's video, I'm going to talk about refunds from colleges and universities in response to the coronavirus crisis. I'm a student at UMass Amherst, the University of Massachusetts flagship. And the reason I'm making this video is because I want to provide a documented record for, maybe students who are considering going to the school in the future, or people who are just curious as to how other colleges in the higher education system have dealt with it, so they could compare that response with theirs, or even just people who are genuinely curious into how colleges have responded in the form of refund checks, because they do differ from one institution to the next. So I can only speak to the experience that I have as a student at UMass. In this video, I'm going to address 3 points. Number one, how much should I get in a refund based on the guidelines that were enumerated? Number two, what is the refund that I actually ended up getting? And then third, I'm just going to offer some final thoughts on the process and how I thought it was executed. Big disclaimer, I do have a strong bias towards UMass Amherst because I do go there and it is my, quote unquote dream school, right? But for the sake of this video, I'm going to be as objective as humanly possible. So let's get right into it. First things first, we got the announcement on March 27th, and this email, which I will read. President Meehan and Chancellor Subaswamy announced today that the university will adjust student room and board fees based on the date that the residence halls close, March 22nd, through the end of the spring 2020 semester for students who moved off campus or are unable to access the dining program. It also mentions the parking fees. UMass Amherst will reflect the cost adjustments as a credit on students' online university accounts by April 17th. This is from a FAQ that was set up by the UMass Bursar office. And if you look at these two sections, how was my adjustment calculated for residential halls and how was my adjustment calculated for residential meal plans? In both cases, it talks about accounting for the remaining 7 weeks of the semester. In other words, we will be refunded for 7 weeks out of the total 15. So to find out what the total percent would be, you would just divide 7 divided by 15, which comes to 46%. Now that we know what the percentage is for calculating residential hall refund and residential meal refund, let's take a look at what my dorm cost and meal cost plans were. This here is a list of all of the different undergraduate rooms available for students living at UMass Amherst. And the one that I lived in for freshman year was a single dorm in Southwest. And a single dorm, it's significantly more expensive than a shared room, so much so that I'm actually going to be living in a double. I'll have a roommate for next semester. But I had a single room freshman year, so that's $4,795. If we're going by the formula exactly, it would be 46% of that. We'll calculate that in a moment. But let's first look at the dining plan. I had the unlimited 250, which I believe is the basic default that they enroll all students in. This was $3,159 for the semester. So now that we know what the dorm and meal plan costs are, let's get that set up and then calculate what that would come out to be. 46% of 4,795 plus 46% of 3,159, and this should give an approximate estimate of what I should be expecting in a refund based off the guidelines that were given by UMass. It totals to $3,658.84. That's a good deal of money, especially during a global pandemic, but let's see what this actually came to. After all was said and done, I ended up getting 2 refunds from the university, one which was for $1,014.80 and another which was for $1,600 on the dot, which if you add comes out to $2,614.80, which is very short of the estimated number. I did end up contacting the Bursar office about this. They stated that students had deductions in their housing grants, and they did some other math behind the scenes to account for the fact that we were no longer going to be using campus housing for another 7 weeks, and I guess that is how that was affected. So it was about in my case, it was $865 that got deducted as a result of the housing credit. So now that you all know my financial portfolio, I'm going to share my final thoughts on the process that was laid out by UMass. So really there's two things that I want to mention. One big pet peeve that I have about what was refunded is what was not. I'm not saying that, I'm not grateful for the 2600 that I ended up getting. It has nothing to do with that. It just has to do with the value, and college is an incredibly large investment and you should be getting your full value. My biggest pet peeve is UMass made clear from the beginning they would not be refunding a single solitary penny of tuition and fees. And in case you don't know, at least here in the United States, tuition and fees make up the big bulk of the cost of education in the higher education system. The argument that they used to justify this action was the fact that we were still getting Zoom lessons or sessions online. Therefore, because we were still, receiving that education and being able to go to our classes in the form of a Zoom session, that refunding tuition wasn't necessary. But here's the issue with that. I don't think any of them would argue with a straight face that the quality of the education, the value of education that was received in a Zoom session, learning virtually, is of the same quality of what we were experiencing actually on campus, in the lecture halls, engaging with our peers, working in groups. I don't think anybody could seriously make that argument, especially given that there are many professors who have very little experience teaching online. I'm not saying that classes can't be taught effectively online or that online classes can't be valuable, but to say that in these many cases of professors who've never taught an online class before, who are suddenly doing so, that it's of the same exact quality that it was in person, and that therefore students are not entitled to any financial compensation. I just think it's absolutely absurd to say that. I can't really say that I'm shocked. The University of Massachusetts has raised tuition and fees on students for 5 years in a row. Lawmakers and the administration officials in UMass will project a lot of blame, but ultimately at the end of the day, the ones who always foot the bill, it's the students. Tuition and fees go up, it's the students who feel the impact of that. Another reason why the classes were not of the same quality in Zoom sessions, this was at least the case in my classes. In one class, there were actually no lectures at all. It was all just pre-recorded lectures, many of which came from 9 years ago. And they were good, they were informative, but that's not the same as taking it in 2020 in live session with updated information. And in my other classes, we actually had only one meeting a week. So classes that were meeting 3 times a week were now meeting once a week. That's 1/3 of the instruction. So it's one thing, I'm not saying that it should logically follow that 1/3 of tuition should be refunded, but to say that zero tuition should be refunded when we only got 1/3 of the classes that we otherwise would have if we were on campus. However, I do want to mention that because of the CARES Act that was passed by Congress, UMass Amherst is also going to be giving out some grant money from the CARES Act. I don't know exactly how they're going to be disseminating those funds, but they will be dispersed to students based on their financial need. Certainly students who are Pell Grant recipients like myself, or first generation college students, that is a significant thing as well, because UMass did receive, I think I saw in an article, it was like $18 million, half of which $9 million is going to be used to help students dealing with the crisis. All right, everyone, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate your time. I thought this could be especially useful for high school students who are exploring different colleges and universities right now, which I can't imagine how much more difficult it is in the present time we find ourselves. I totally sympathize with that. I think one extremely important factor that every high school student considering going to college or university should factor in is how that institution executed their coronavirus response in terms of student housing, student refunds. Evaluate them yourself. Do your own research. Come to your own conclusion of whether that university's response to the crisis adhered to the standards of the kind of institution that you want to be a part of. The purpose of this video was to just lay out the facts so that anybody can access it and then make their own determinations. To all my viewers who do not go to UMass Amherst, which I assume is probably most, if not all, do you go to a college or a university, and if you do, what was your university or college's response in the aftermath of the university college closure? If you don't, then what are some things that your friends or family members who do go have been saying about their school's response? Share down below. What did you like about your school's response? What didn't you like about your school's response? If you have any questions for me, please feel free to ask. This Friday, I will have a video up about an interaction that I had with the College Board, so please do stay tuned for that. But until next time, you marvelous legend.